What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Gotians Games, and today's topic, I actually wanted to talk about the Nintendo Switch. And if you guys have been following any news about the Nintendo Switch, you already know that the Nintendo Switch Mini is probably, I think it's available for purchase now, or at least pre-order. And while I call it the Nintendo Switch Mini, it's really called the Nintendo Switch Lite. Basically, it's the Nintendo Switch version that is more portable than this one. Basically, the Joy-Cons don't come off. It's one solid unit. But I wanted to actually talk to you guys about why you shouldn't purchase the Nintendo Switch Lite. And if you guys are unaware of the following that we're going to be talking about, then maybe you should just wait. All right, just wait. Don't buy the Nintendo Switch Lite, and here's why. The problem with the Nintendo Switch, and yes, I know there's bubbles in my this frame has been on here for almost a year now. The reason why I say not to purchase a Nintendo Switch Lite is because Nintendo Switches suffer from something called Joy-Con drift. The Joy-Con drift, if you don't know what it is, all right, Joy-Con drift is an issue where the Joy-Con is not keeping alignment like it should be. And due to that fact, your character will then move however they please, or the camera will move and will not stop moving. If you've never experienced Joy-Con drift, good for you. You're lucky. But if you want to find out for yourself what Joy-Con drift actually is, you probably go to like a GameStop or a Best Buy or Walmart where they have Nintendo Switches to test, because theirs have been used and abused so much that the Joy-Cons are not going to be working properly, and it's going to suffer massively from Joy-Con drift, which greatly affects your gameplay, specifically if you're playing such games as Mario Kart, Mario Party, things where it matters immensely for the Joy-Cons, where some other games might not have that much of a problem, or maybe it doesn't bother you so much. Like some RPGs, it might not bother you that the camera is moving slowly without you doing anything, or maybe you can use the directional buttons instead. But whatever the case is, the reason why you shouldn't buy a Nintendo Switch Lite is because of Joy-Con drift. Unlike the regular Nintendo Switch, where you can remove the Joy-Cons, you cannot do so on a Nintendo Switch Lite. And that is a problem, considering that you're still spending, I think what is it, $150 or whatever the price is for the Nintendo Switch Lite. You're still spending that amount, and because you're still spending a good amount of money for a console that suffers from Joy-Con drift, honestly, just wait until either enough reviews are out where you can make a proper judgment call, so you know, okay, hey, this is not going to suffer from Joy-Con drift, or it's not that big an issue like it was on the current generations. Or B, wait until they fix it. Wait until they have a fix for the current Nintendo Switches, and then that fix most likely translates over to the Nintendo Switch Lite. Now, the other thing here is that the Nintendo Switch Lite, because you can't remove the Joy-Cons, you can't play the game. You can't play a Switch Mini, or Mini. I keep wanting to call it Mini. You can't play it in dock mode. Okay, so unlike the current model where I can go ahead and put it in my in the dock, and then I can go ahead and play using a wireless controller, or hell, even a wired controller. Okay, I don't have that option, or you don't have that option specifically for the Switch Lite. You can put the Switch Lite on a kickstand and use a wireless controller. You can do that, but you cannot do it in dock mode. So if your Joy-Cons suffer from Joy-Con drift in the Switch Mini, then that wholeheartedly defeats the purpose of having the portability. Now, the Joy-Con drift is not something that's new to Nintendo. Nintendo's actually had Joy-Con drift quite a bit. Going back to the Nintendo 64 days, I have in my hand a Nintendo 64 controller. And the Nintendo 64 controller back in the day had a problem with Joy-Con drift. The Joy-Con, which is this part right here, or the joystick, I should say, not Joy-Con. It had joystick controller. The joystick itself, back in the Nintendo 64, was kind of faulty from factory. From enough uses, especially when Mario Party came out, and you were going like this, like crazy, on the joystick, it would wear out the bearings, and the joystick would gradually just start sinking down, and you would get that Joy-Con, the joystick drift, until basically it was unusable, and your joystick was just hanging like a, like it should not be. I was gonna make a perverted joke, but I'm not gonna do that. So it was just hanging and not the way that it should be at all times. That's something that I've experienced myself personally in Nintendo 64 controllers. I did have a GameCube controller that had that issue as well, but GameCube controllers were made much better. It took a lot of gameplay to get a GameCube controller to do something like that. So normally you didn't see it in GameCube controllers. PlayStation controllers did not suffer that much from joystick problems. You had the DualShock controllers, which I have back there in my closet with my PS2. But you had the DualShock controllers that introduced the joysticks in the PlayStation controllers, and they didn't suffer from joystick drift, or not as much as the N64 did. So PlayStation over time has improved upon their design every generation. The PS3s were much better than the PS2 controllers. Even though I love the PS2 controllers, the PS3s was a massive step up. And then you have the PS4 controllers, and the PS4 controllers definitely do not suffer, in my opinion, from any sort of joystick drift. This one here, this PS4 controller, is from when I bought my PS4. My PS4 is about 5 years old, 6 years old. My PS4 is 6 years old now, and so this controller is 6 years old. Never once have I had any sort of joystick difficulties, unlike the Switch controllers. Now, I have not had any joystick issues or Joy-Con issues, like, knock on wood, and that's specifically because I don't like to use my Joy-Cons. I do my best not to use it, and I do my best to use my wireless controller or my my wired controllers. This is, I love this controller, Metroid controller. Anyways, review coming for these controllers, by the way. So I do my best not to use my Joy-Con controllers because I know that eventually they will get Joy-Con drift, and because I have a limited edition Switch, I don't want it to suffer from that, because then I would need to either buy another set of Joy-Cons, which wouldn't match the system, or I would need to go and get these repaired or try to repair them myself. So, bottom line, guys, if you're thinking about buying a Switch Lite, hold off just a little bit. Wait until we have some more proper reviews from consumers. That will take some time. I would say wait a good 6 months. And that's, honestly, that is my rule of thumb for any new system, is I don't like to buy new systems right out the gate, because they typically have problems, they have bugs, and they have all sorts of things. The Switch has been out for quite some time. You think they would have fixed this issue by now, but they haven't, and that's because the Joy-Con drift didn't start happening right away. It took a little bit of time before we started seeing people complaining of the Joy-Con drift. So keep that in mind when you're shopping and you're thinking about buying a Nintendo Switch. Think about what's the best way to handle it. Now, me personally, I think this is perfectly fine for portability, honestly. Like, I go and I put it into my case and I'm good to go. The only complaint I have is that it's a little heavy, especially when compared to like a 3DS or something and you're used to it. But the screen is much bigger, obviously, compared to the 3DS, so it's a little bit easier to see games, especially like on your eyes and stuff. Not saying my eyesight is terrible, but I do wear glasses, and from time to time my eyes get tired. So it's nice to have a bigger screen. And again, for portability, this is not that bad. I mean, you also have, like, if you want to compare it to a PlayStation Vita, which my Vita's back there, The screen to the Vita again is smaller, but I think the weight is. This probably weighs a little bit more than a Vita, but again, it's very heavy, and you start to feel it, especially if you're like sitting and you have your elbows on the table. You start to feel it after a while, how heavy the Switch actually is. But besides that, it's fine for portability, and like I said, even when I'm using it, like if I'm going out anywhere and I'll bring my wireless controller. Like I'll put this in my bag and throw it in my backpack or something, and I'll throw a wireless controller in my backpack as well. That way, like I could just prop that up on the table and use my my wireless controller instead of using the Joy-Cons. Again, because I don't want the Joy-Cons to be worn out. So anyways, guys, I know that was a really long explanation of why you shouldn't buy a Nintendo Switch Lite right now. Just wait a little bit. It's not going to kill you to wait. Plus, you know, you got Christmas season coming around, so by then hopefully we have more reviews regarding the Switch Lite, and we'll get to see if the system actually suffers from Joy-Con drift or not. So until then, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I do appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you guys are new. You guys have a great rest of your day. GG, guys.